Really striking because we all know that President Trump campaigned on this message and this promise of lowering costs for everyday Americans. It's something that I heard over and over again on the campaign trail from voters, whether they were voting for President Trump, frankly, or Vice President Harris. The message was that they were very worried about cost of living. But to hear President Trump say that there may be some pain, but that cost of pain will all be worth it down the line, I think was him trying to hedge and prepare the American people for prices going up on everything from avocados coming from Mexico, beer coming from Mexico.
Just hammer about this all day long. Prices are not going up, lady. Prices are not going up. You don't know what you're talking about. None of you people do. It's just yammer. Oh, prices are going up, prices are going up, prices are going up. Prices are not going up. President Trump solved this. Let's go to Natalie Winters. Natalie, Mexico cratered in 24 hours. Sheinbaum, and then Justin Trudeau also cratered. The reason is that Mexico would not be a country 90 days after these tariffs were imposed. They would break apart, and Canada would go into a major, recession or depression. Can you give us an update about the trade wars today that didn't happen?
Well, look, Steve, if I had to count how many times I've heard the word, avocados said here on Media Row, that seems to be the, I guess it's almost as bad as what bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform. That seems to be the only angle of attack that the same press corps that I'm pretty sure for years has never cared about American consumers, let alone American workers. But now all of a sudden they're really concerned about tariffs, because apparently it's going to hurt the bottom line for Americans at home. I'm pretty sure they never covered inflation or anything remotely close to that for the last 4 years. But this is a complete and utter victory for President Trump. I'm honored to really be standing here on such a truly historic day, because this really shows not only, Steve, that America is back, which is something that we've known just in 2 weeks, but more importantly, that we're done negotiating from the mindset of being losers or the idea of equity, that because we're an economic hegemon and a global power, that we have to act like we're an inferior country and not throw around our economic heavyweights like we're doing right now with the tariffs. And you know what? We got substantive and substantial wins today, showing how really economic warfare can be used to bring about wins, not just for American workers, but actually for American sovereignty, right? 10,000 Border Patrol agents coming from Mexico. But remember, Steve, Canada, too, announced $1 billion. What was it? Less than 24 hours after President Trump met with Trudeau, or I guess then President-elect Trump. So this is just win after win. And frankly, Steve, I think it shows something that we've hammered from the get-go, which is that the framing of this as a trade war, as President Trump's trade war, is a victim blaming not only President Trump, but the American people. We are the victims in this. Maybe let's call this a little bit of retribution or justice today. But for countries like China, like Mexico, like Canada, who have exploited American workers and the American economy for way too long, and it's nice to have a president who's actually putting American workers first and not taking the bogus line of the Chamber of Commerce and all the talking heads that I'm not too far away from right now.
Natalie, hang on for 1 second. Take winners. FBI, USDA, you've been on this one for years now. Today's a big day for you, is it not, ma'am?
It's a huge day for a myriad of reasons. I want to start, though, with a little bit of a, resistance update for our audience, particularly in the silo of what's going on at the FBI. Obviously, everyone's favorite Norm Eisen, State Democracy Defenders, that's his group, in conjunction with sort of other people who've been instrumental figures in basically every impeachment and whistleblower against President Trump, that is, infamous attorney Mark Zaid, are now threatening to essentially take other actions against the Trump administration for daring to purge the FBI of the rot that so desperately needs to go. I think like I said last week, we're starting to see the sort of first showdown between the resistance, lawfare elements and what President Trump wants to do in terms of gutting the administrative state. And to link that to what you're seeing go on at USAID, I think the signal, not the noise, is what, Elon Musk was tweeting about USAID. It wasn't just the concept or the sort of paradigm shift that, our tax dollars shouldn't be going and funding ridiculous woke programs in foreign countries. He was tweeting actually about stories that we've, I think, broke here on the War Room, myself over at the National Pulse, about the biolabs in Ukraine and COVID, the Wuhan Institute of Virology receiving upwards of $50 million from USAID to engage in risky gain-of-function research. So it's sort of the dark underbelly that is USAID, which I think is the important paradigm shift that needs to be happening. But let's just take a moment, Steve, and just celebrate, truly, again, a historic day, how far we have come, but most importantly, I think today you're seeing essentially the supermajority, right, that Republicans have on full display. Because what do you have? Jamie Raskin looking like an utter and complete clown, standing outside of USAID giving some weak, limp speech about how they're going to take on and tackle Elon Musk. Bro, you have no power. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure they're already writing the impeachment papers, and 2 years from now, they're going to focus on that. But at least for the next 2 years, they have basically no way to push back, with the exception of, frivolous lawsuits from groups like Norm Eisen. But I think today really shows you it's asymmetrical warfare. And I think for so long, we've been on the opposite side of that equation. But today, whether it's the tariffs, what's going on at the FBI, what's going on at USAID, they are in full-blown panic. And they look like petulant children because they have really no grounds for recourse. And isn't that wonderful? I think we call that a little something called retribution or justice. I'll take it.
Big win. Real quickly, got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Mike Davis is going to join us here in a minute, but talk to me about the White House perspective on the confirmation process, ma'am.
Well, I think they're extremely grateful for all the calls that this audience has been making. I'm pretty sure they were receiving upwards of 600 calls a minute, so much so that I believe the Senate phone call system was in meltdown and hasn't been working. So shout out to the War Room Posse on that front. I think with, each respective nominee, who the sort of weak points are, the Achilles heels are. But I will say, Steve, I do think that it is interesting. And I think it goes back to something that we've talked about. If you watch MSNBC, they're always having this sort of internal struggle session about, whether or not we should take the bait on this issue or that issue. And I think that they know the more that they sort of fan the flames of attacking these nominees, the more cover it will give these squishy Republican senators. So it is interesting how they're not covering it with the same level, I think, of intensity that they did Pete Hegseth, because they learned their lesson. And most importantly, they learned that I guess it's better to be, loved than feared by the War Room audience. But they learned the power and the wrath of the War Room Posse that were not to be messed with.
Natalie, social media and how can you go? Because I know you're having 50 stories a day written about you. They're picking on you over there. We know that. But you're tough. You're a tough kid. You're a tough kid.
Yeah, they're not going to get to me. They're jealous, and they should be, because our show's better than theirs. Just look at the viewership. Natalie G. Winters on all social media platforms.
You're great, and we can see you on the Matt Gaetz show tonight. The Matt Gaetz show on One American News. You're going to be
tonight, and I just did Piers Morgan, so
tonight.
You can watch me debating dwarf FAA controllers too.
Natalie Winters, Natalie G. Winters.
Let's just say I won.
We'll see you. Thank you, ma'am. No doubt about that. Thank you, ma'am.